Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I am having a very interesting conversation with Aaron Ashcraft. Aaron has a very interesting story. Whilst growing up in West Virginia, in 1968 he lost his father in the Farmington coal mine explosion. We will be decoding some of the evidence to help provide Aaron with some unanswered questions relating to the mining disaster. Aaron was introduced to me by Michelle Gibson after Michelle was working with him on her videos uncovering the hidden West Virginia and the incredible video on the powerful alignment on the Trail of Giants in Alopecia and beyond. I have put a link to both of these videos, which I highly recommend you guys watch, in the video description. Aaron got back to me with some rather unusual, unexplained paranormal experiences he has had along the energy centers along this alignment. Some of which were very similar experiences to those that I have experienced myself along certain energy centers. In this conversation, we'll also be raising the awareness of the ever-increasing numbers of such experiences people have at energy centers and Leys all over the world, comparing the similarities to both our experiences, as well as decoding and attempting to provide some answers to these kind of events and experiences. If any of you guys watching this conversation have had similar paranormal experiences along the Earth grid, do get in touch or pop a comment below, as I shall be creating a lot more of these videos on this subject. Enjoy the conversation, guys.
The Farmington mine disaster. An explosion tore through Consolidation Coal Company's No. 9 mine in Farmington. Flames and smoke shot out through the entrance of the mine, but there was hope that miners trapped below ground were still alive. 21 miners were rescued, but 78 miners were trapped after the initial explosion. Rescue efforts were delayed as more explosions rocked the mine. 2 rescue teams eventually entered the mine, but they encountered high levels of methane gas and were ordered out. Officials finally came to the difficult conclusion that none of the trapped miners were alive and decided to seal the mine to extinguish underground fires. The Farmington disaster brought to public attention the lack of proper safety conditions in the coal mines. The existence of today's Federal Mine Safety and Health Administration is due in large part to the Farmington mine disaster.
Like, if you could let her know one way or another that you do believe that the mine accident was probably man-made or
Yes.
whatever, you know what I'm saying? Because we did a whole video on this, and it's like it might help her out because it's helping me out immensely just to know from an expert
Yes.
like you
Well,
that
that's
this
what I'm
mining
hoping.
accident was no accident.
That's what I'm hoping other people can actually come back to us and say, look, yes, they've had a similar experience with the mine as well. Because then if more people come forward with their information, it makes it more viable than us just saying it's a deliberate act, because it's, you know, got more.
Well, I want to bring up something else that might interest you and might not, because one thing about the coal mines that I read and I studied is if you look at the people who die in all these coal mines, you have a huge cultural mix of
Yes.
people, and it just wipes out an entire community. It's not like the Irish die. It's like Irish, Italians, and everybody loses somebody. And if you look at the names, it's like you're just looking at a piece of the world when you look at all the miners who died. You know what I'm saying? They're just a mishmash of everybody.
Absolutely. It is, because what they do is obviously with immigrations and stuff like that, a lot of the mine workers were immigrants that came in. And one of the main reasons for it was because of cheap labor.
Yes.
So that was one of the main
Yes.
kind of reasons for it. And in my opinion, this is only my personal opinion, but very backed up by information out there by other people, is that they were deliberately getting these immigrants in to work in mines, knowing that it's a dangerous job, and they're just using it as labor because the controllers and the governments, in my opinion, do not give a hoot about people. They don't care about people. We're just a resource for them, like an energy source and a resource for making money.
You know, I should bring up something that's off the subject, but it's not. But my dad, 1 or 2 weeks before he was killed, had a dream that he was with God and Jesus sitting on the moon. And he actually was told by one of them that he would be dead very soon. He told my mom the story. My mom told him to shut up. But after he died, my mom regretted not letting him tell the whole story. But
Yes.
he basically was warned before, and he basically just got things together before he was killed.
Oh my God, Frankie, I said the whole midnight shift and the mine blew up. They're trapped in the mine, and I said Pete's in there too.
He left for work and he acted, well, just kind of like he didn't want to go to work. He'd rather stayed home. He said, maybe I should stay home. I said, well, why don't you? And he went to the door about 2 or 3 different times, kept saying, should I go or should I stay home? He said, it's spitting snow out there. And he said, I just hate to be on the road. I said, why don't you stay home then and pretend you're sick tonight? But he went, and then that was the explosion. So
I live right on, almost on the seat of the main explosion, right, Sarah? And they said, you get out of your house. And the police told me to get out. But you know why? Because they was notified to tell me to get out. Because they didn't want me to see what was going on up that damn dirty, filthy mines.
I'd give up. I figured we'd never make it out. Because we all passed out. I don't know whether any one man didn't pass out or not. I couldn't say that because I know I did. When I woke up, I was like froze to death.
I've worked in the mines about 7 years, and I've really never been too scared of the mines. But I don't think I'll go back in the mines.
And the television says if another explosion would occur, they'd have to seal the mine. And about 1 o'clock, that explosion came, and I says, they'll seal them.
They sealed them, and then we knew that was it.
You can read it in the paper and the radio tells us to raise our children to be miners as well. Tell them how safe the mines are today, and to be like Daddy, bring home a big pay. But don't you believe him, my boy, that story's a lie. Remember the disaster at the Vanishing mine, where 78 miners were burned alive. Cause of unsafe conditions, your daddy's died.
And I would like to know, since they died, in order to help the living, find out what caused that explosion. You know, you learn from a tragedy, and then maybe they could help others to live, and then it wouldn't happen again. But as long as they're greedy, and as long as they're rushing the coal miner and wanting the production before lives, there'll always be tragedies.
Yes, absolutely. And people get premonitions beforehand. Because my mother, she had premonitions as well, because she was psychic in a sense. She had these, but she didn't develop it, unfortunately, because she didn't have the opportunity to get these psychic developments. She remembers seeing, because they were going to get, my mother and father were going to go over to Poland because they were both Polish, to see their mother and father, and they were going to bring some bedding for him, some linen and stuff to take over, because they didn't have much in Poland back then, so they decided to buy him some. And literally a day before they were due to go to Poland, my mother had this vision of her father who had previously passed away. He actually came in, sat down on the side of her bed, and said to her, "Look, do not go to Poland because your mother has unfortunately died." She thought it was just a dream. And literally 2 days later, after that, there was a telegram that came through. And obviously, a telegram is what was used to notify people when someone dies or something before, technology, before telephones and stuff. She received a letter to say that her mum had actually died, and not to bother bringing a linen there because obviously she had died. And that was literally that premonition that she had 2 days before she received that. And how would you get that information? These things are real, and people just don't realize exactly how real these kind of things are. And people just, because they don't understand how it works, they just discredit these kind of experiences.
Well, can I ask you something then, now that you're on this subject? My mom, since she's passed, I think, I don't even remember the year 2018, 2019. It's not important to me, but she visits me a lot. I know that, but she's not visiting as much because she's just doing other things, which is fine. But my dad, after he died, he's only visited me 3 times my entire life, twice when I was a little kid, but I kept asking him over and over why, and he just never answered. But the third time was before all this stuff. How can I say it? I guess I've had an awakening.
Yes.
I don't know how else to say it, where the other side is being able to reach me. But the thing is when all this started happening, there's a small dream. I have these small dreams right in between waking and sleeping that last like 5 seconds. Hypnagogic dreams, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
And I was sitting on my father's lap, and my brother was trying to get up to my father's lap, and he just said, "This is just a learning experience for you." And that's basically how he left it. So somehow or another, I'm in this learning experience, but I don't exactly know what I'm supposed to learn, how long it's supposed to be, whatever. It's just, he just left me that little trinket of information. What does that mean to you?
So that trinket of information, from my experience, because I have all these kind of experiences and downloads myself, where I'll get a trinket of information, whether it be one word or a couple of words, and I would not know what they mean.
Mm.
But usually that is an answer to something. And it was usually for myself, it was a number of months usually, or even years, that I actually found what the answer was later on. So it's having the knowledge inserted into your subconscious mind, so it's there for future reference.
Okay.
And then you will find out what that was in some time in the future. It could be, in a few hours, the same day, in a few hours, in a few weeks, in a few months, or a few years. Because that information is still stored in the subconscious mind, you will find the information, what that was trying to say. Because if you're not ready to receive certain information, because you're not on that higher consciousness level, if you're given too much information, it can have a negative impact on your mental health, for example, on someone's mental health. Because I was always given...
It seems like... I'm sorry. But I just wanted to let you know that it seems like since I started talking to Michelle, everything just sort of opened up. I get all these things that come to me at like 2 or 3 in the morning. And one thing I should tell you is a couple days ago, when Michelle and I were exchanging emails and she gave me some good pointers, my front door opened. I know that it was locked and everything because I checked it 2 hours before when I went outside. And then, like I said, when I was reading an email from Michelle, all of a sudden the front door, I just heard the knob turn and it just opened. So something's listening to me. You know what I'm saying?
Something's
I don't
happening
know
up
if
there.
that's good.
Yeah, I mean, what I can do is I can find out, some other time, whether it's a good energy or bad energy by using dowsing to see what that brings up with. So it can either be a negative energy or a positive energy. But usually when you receive signs like that, I take it as being a positive sign. So I take it as being a sign from our guardians or whoever's actually guiding us on our spiritual path. And once we acknowledge,
Well, I should tell you. Okay. Mhm. Well, can I just tell you then, because I think I have seen my spirit guides, if this makes sense to you. One of them was a very skinny guide in the sense that I think he was a samurai, but pre-1500s, because his hairstyle just didn't match the
Sure.
regular samurai,
Yeah.
but he was very thin. He was wearing a gray tunic, and he pointed me to a rock garden that was blank, and he just basically motioned me in. And I just got the sense that maybe this is your rock garden, you build it, you're responsible for it. But another guide, he's just some Japanese guy that wears this dirty tunic that's down to his knees. He's dirty all over, and he stinks, but he gives me all kinds of information. So I have no idea where he's coming from. And I've also seen this Celtic woman with bright red hair that's parted that comes down right like this. And I think either her eyes were blue or green or one of each, but I can't remember. But she stared at me like this far away. We were just like eye to eye in a dream. So I think those are at least 3 guides that I've had. And a fourth one, I just know that I sit at a desk and she lectures me sometimes in my dreams. That's all I could tell you. And I wake up with all these ideas.
So that's where the ideas come from. It's like your guides letting you know that they're bringing you ideas. So when you get all these information,
more or less,
just this download, it's information, because basically, if once you're awake, your pineal gland has access to the 5th dimension. So you're familiar with the 3rd, 4th, and 5th dimensions? Is that something that you're familiar with?
Sort of. I listen, believe it or not, I listen to the Solfeggio frequency 963 all the time. Yeah. I listen to a lot of those chakra frequencies. I don't know if that helps or not, but I even go to sleep a lot of times with those Solfeggio frequencies playing, and I get vivid dreams. So I think they're helping me, but does that make sense to you?
They're the natural frequencies of the Earth. They're the frequencies of the universe, not necessarily just the Earth. So once you're in tune to that, especially listening to those kind of frequencies, it actually raises your energy. So then you're more in connection with the 5th dimension, which is where all our where the guides, where the guides are, because we can't see where they physically are, because it brings to the conversation that we live in a simulation. So in a 3D world, which is the Earth plane where we reside, and everything we see is either solid material and stuff like that, what we see every day, that's classified as the 3rd dimension. So it's a different reality. And then you've got the 4th dimension, which is a higher level of consciousness, which is beyond our scope of vision, because we can only see 0.035% of the electromagnetic light spectrum. And some people say as much as 0.5%. So it's less than 1% of what's out there in the universe our human body can actually perceive and see in that electromagnetic spectrum. And the 4th dimension is where the controllers who control humanity and certain fake gods, such as your Lucifers, your Satans, and all those kind of people reside. They reside in the 4th dimension. But then what sets us apart, which is why they're completely jealous of humanity, because humans have got the ability to break free from that 4th dimension. So we can connect to the 5th dimension, where the real creator, the benevolent, creator of love and life, basically the real God, we have access to that 5th dimension, and they haven't got access to that. So we pull down the information from that 5th dimension, which is that level of reality higher than the controllers.
Is that why I feel like a lot of times I get extremely exhausted when I do work for Michelle? I do research, because I actually stopped doing research a little bit the 2 days before this call, because I scheduled the call, there was like 5 days where I had to sleep 18 hours a day because I was just totally wiped out. Does that make sense to you, what happens? Because like I said, I feel rejuvenated today, but I know that if I start researching again, I'm going to get the heavy lead legs and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's because the bodies, our bodies, the human body isn't used to those vibrations and that frequencies. So once we start connecting to that frequency, a lot of people, do have that kind of like fatigue sense and that because they're not used to those higher frequencies. So the best thing to do is to do whatever you can to raise your own energy levels so they can match that higher frequency instead of
Well, I do know
focusing
that
on the
qigong.
negativity. Sorry, like Shikon, for example,
Now,
that's a
well,
great
I
way to
know
do.
that I used to get splitting headaches. I still do sometimes, but qigong has actually helped reduce those splitting headaches when I study and stuff like that. Because I'd get headaches right on the top of my head, almost like a hose is whatever sucking something out of me. But qigong, when I do like 30 to 50 minutes a day, it seems like it helps an awful lot. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but it's
It
like
does.
it's gotten to the point, if I do it in pitch dark, I can actually see my hands go in front of my face. I see like little whatever, little electrical things coming off my fingers, whatever you want to call it, but I can actually see my hands in pitch dark with my eyes shut.
Yeah, because the way I look at it is with Shikon and meditation and any other exercises like that, whether it be praying or doing high conscious exercises. It's the way I look at it is if it's like we connect to the source. So it's like a beam of light, like an energy, basically connecting to the source, and it actually penetrates. The way I see it is once you get that connection, it penetrates through the firmament. Because a lot of scientists now, including the Bible, say that God created the firmament to protect, from the skies above.
Just,
And if we connect,
just talking about it makes my hands hot, so I'm
yeah,
with
so
you on
that's
that. Okay, I see what you're
confirming me
saying.
that you're resonating, that your frequency resonates with what I'm saying, that as being connecting to that energy. So you're recognizing that as being the truth on your energy level. So we basically
Well, can I
that's our
tell you something?
Mhm.
No, go on. Finish your thought there,
Yeah,
please.
because
Finish your thought.
once we penetrate through, so basically our level of consciousness can only penetrate through that firmament, whatever that firmament happens to be, that dome around the world. Because above the firmament is that fifth dimension where the true creator, the God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, actually the dimension that they reside in. And because we're raising our level of consciousness, it's like having the key to unlock, to create a portal, if you like, through that firmament to get the information to download.
Okay, I need to speak to you about something that's been on my mind here. It's about beings that I've seen that have attacked me that I get mental images of. Do you mind if I talk about that for a
Yeah,
minute?
please
Is
do.
that
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay, 'cause there are times I've been attacked, and actually, when I shut my eyes, I can see who's attacking me. Like these two beings one time attacked me, and I remember one was short, one was like 6 foot tall, but they were all surrounded by flames. So I never, they were like anthropomorphic flames that were attacking me, and I could hear them walking around me, make noises, all kinds of stuff. That's like one type of attack, but another type of attack is like I was sitting actually in the bathroom. I had a really bad headache and I was just sitting on the toilet. I was just sitting there trying to relax, and then all of a sudden this little head, golden head, came up, and he just sat there with his head like this close to my face. You can tell by the shape of his head he was maybe 4 foot tall, but it was
Yeah.
like totally golden, and he had a little crook nose, thin lips, and he had bumps on his head, which I can't visualize right now, but he had bumps on his head. And I remember something weird happened. I remember shutting my eyes and I saw a filament leave him and come to me. And as soon as that happened, I go, "You just fucked up. Well, you just messed up." I go, you just attached yourself to me." And I go, "I promise you, as soon as I'm able," which means death, I go, "I'm going to track your ass down and I'm going to dispatch you, and I will make sure that you will never come back to this universe." And then he was gone. And
So
I have no idea where that came from.
so that was your guidance, because basically the way I see it, once you raise your level of consciousness to a certain level, people are protected by the higher sources. So we are protected from the negative energies, entities, whatever you want to call them, these demons and stuff, because we resonate at a much higher frequency that's a lot higher than what they are. And by having that, because you made that conscious decision, instead of falling, that you're going to be attacked, and giving him consent to attack you, basically, by giving that fear, it gives them that consent. They can actually attack you. By you saying you're going to kick his ass or something until, so he can't come back, it scared the living daylights out of that entity or whatever it is, because you did not give them that permission.
So fighting back,
and they can't do anything unless you give them permission, but they will try to get your consent and your permission, in not like saying, oh yes, I want you to do this, but they try to do it in an energetic way.
Well, I need to bring this up then, because I had a dream about 3 or 4 days ago that I was in a new school. I have these dreams about this one city that I always go to. It's just different homes, different houses, different buildings. But there was a building that I went to, and it was a dormitory, a sort of a college dormitory, and I had a new roommate, and it was a black guy. I don't mean to sound negative, but the thing is, his head was shaped differently, because I didn't trust the guy. I could barely speak to him, and every time I spoke to him, it was like, everything's good. Just, I'm your roommate. We're good, But I remember looking at his head, and he had an afro shaped like that, if you can see that. Whoops, sorry. That was the top of his head. Where are we at? Okay,
well,
right
so
there.
it's like the 3 points, basically.
Exactly. And it's like, what exactly does that mean? Because it almost seems like it was covering horns or something, but I'm not sure if there was any message, because like I said, something was very bad about that guy that I couldn't figure out. And it's like every time I went into that room, I just wanted to leave, which I did. I never spent more than 30 seconds in that room in my entire dream. And I think I left the guy behind in the dream, but I'm not sure. But does the shape of his head mean anything to you?
It doesn't mean anything. Those 3 points would indicate some kind of trinity or something, possibly because of that. Just those 3 points. So it's some kind of trinity, something symbolic.
Yeah, because I didn't know, because like I said, I felt like he was an evil guy, but especially the way that he was trying to tell me that he wasn't. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. So they try to make them think that they're not. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. So they do try to trick. Those entities tend to trick us in believing that they are the good entities, but they're not. It's a bit like near-death experiences where people say that that we as soon as we leave the body, we go through this portal, this tunnel, whatever people refer it to, and then we're in this area where we're met by someone that we know, whether it's our loved ones that passed away, or even God, Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, anyone that's
right
that you associate with. So you think that they're good, and it's just technically like a hologram. So you go into that light with those people on it, thinking that they're your family, inviting you in, and that's that reincarnation process of coming back down to the earth and being our spirit, the soul, being reincarnated back down to earth, either through the same person, if we haven't completely died where the body's dead, will we be reincarnated as a different person. It's that reincarnation trap, the matrix, as people call it.
Well, let me ask you then, because I know that some of these entities that have attacked me over the years, in my early 30s, like 30 years ago, I started to study this stuff. I started listening to David Icke and all these people, whatever, when he was a young man.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I started getting cluster headaches. So for like 30 years, it's just been survival for me. Like I would work for 8 to 10 months, then I'd have cluster headaches for 2 months or 3 months. It almost seemed like something just came along and just stopped me. And now that I'm starting to do all this stuff again at my old age, it's almost like they're trying to attack me again. But I just, like I said, I don't have the fear or anything that I used to.
No. And that's the crucial thing. If you let go of that fear, because they're going to do whatever they can to try and keep, people, souls in that third and fourth dimension, so we keep on coming back, because we're their source of fuel, we're their battery, we're their energy, if you like. So it's their job to try and keep us in. But as soon as they realize that we're on a higher consciousness level, they try to bring that consciousness back down. But once you let go of all fear,
Is that why
they've got no control over it.
I'm sorry, but I was just wondering, how can I say this? They let me know many, many times that as soon as I die, they're going to get me. But at this particular point, it's like, when I die, I'm coming after you, because I believe in a higher power.
So you've got the power. It does make sense, because basically we have to come to the realization that we, as a spiritual being that's having a temporary experience as a human being, for example, we are greater than just this body that we actually live in. We are, this consciousness, and that we are more powerful because we vibrate on a much higher frequency than not what they do.
Okay.
So what they basically do is they want to bring our consciousness back down so that they can have control over us. But once you let go of the fear and that conscious response that we are more powerful than them and that they've got no control over us, and we let them know, that's when they become powerless, basically.
Is that why I can play?
If they can feel fear from you, then you're feeding that energy. So in a sense, you're consenting to them, to do what they want, basically, by giving them fear. You're feeding them fuel and energy. But if you say no, we're more, you're more powerful, you're more conscious than them because you're on a higher frequency and vibration, it doesn't give them any energy to feed, and then they just disappear, basically. In a sense, they just disappear because they can't resonate with that higher frequency. Because if they did, it would destroy them, basically.
Well, my problem is that you've probably seen that I probably either vortex, portal, I don't know, but stuff comes through because, like I said, I watch my cats. Sometimes it's like a parade. They just watch things go through, in my apartment. So I'm basically being attacked off and on by beings who I've probably never even been in contact with.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, before. So like I said, I plan on moving. Can you help me find a spot in Pennsylvania or whatever that's worth moving to? Because, like I said, I'm in a coal mine country. So, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, we're going to have these energy problems wherever I go to a certain extent. It's just like there's going to be certain spots that are less intense than others, but yes. I guess I'm living in a real bad spot here.
Yeah, I mean, what I would, to confirm everything, because obviously you got coal mining in there, it is something has happened to that land previously, as you can see from the imagery that we've seen. Something has happened to that land with, before the coal mines are even there. So there was some kind of disaster that took place in that area, whether it be during the cataclysm during the 1800s that destroyed the previous human civilization, such as the Moors that Michelle goes on about, or, the high, whatever those, previous human beings were, these architects designing these or inspiring buildings, that they unearthed and stuff. These are the ones that they completely destroyed the earth, the population. So that is still held within that land because of that, whatever happened in the past. And it's usually a good place because when you sent me the message about your experiences, the first thing that came to my mind was that it could potentially be an underground base somewhere in that, not necessarily where you're living, but somewhere within that kind of area of land which had that destruction.
Right.
Because if you think about it, these entities, they have to be operating from somewhere.
They need the energy too.
They need the energy. So they're going to be attracted to these low vibrational energies. And if there are such things, which I firmly believe that there are now, because there's more information out there to say that there are such things as underground military bases, which scientists are proving, where would those bases be located? Would they be located in areas of good energy, or would they be located in areas of bad energy so they can feed off that energy?
I did have a dream once that I should tell you about, that I don't know if it's true or not, but I was told that a lot of the lakes and stuff being built is to supply extra water
Yes.
down to where it's needed. Does that make sense to
It,
you?
it does make sense to me. And with all the buildings of the dams being built
Yes.
up in the area, it makes perfect sense. Because water is always a main element that they require. Because water
Okay.
is a conductor, and it's the source of life. Basically, every living thing depends on water.
But you know how Michelle talks about the Serpent Mound always in Ohio? You know,
Yeah.
the Serpent Mound that she's talked about. I look at that and I don't even see a snake anymore. I see multiple religions. I see like a cross. I see Hindu religion there. I see, you know, lots of different things, but I don't see a serpent anymore. I almost see a map of
Yeah.
of how electrical impulses go through.
Yes.
And I'm just wondering if you see the same thing I do or not. Because like I said, I don't think it's a serpent at all anymore. I almost think it's a guide from the past, if that
it's
makes any
definitely
sense.
some symbology, and it just depends on our own perspective as to what we see as we actually see. Because if one person can see something entirely different, well, perceive something as being entirely different than to somebody else, it doesn't mean that that person's right or that person's wrong. It's just their way of seeing things. It's a bit like if you have the number 6, for example, and if you have if you have a sheet of paper with number 6 on it, one person stands on one end of the piece of paper and the other person stands at the one end. One person's going to be able to read as a 6 and the other one's going to be able to read as a 9.
Right.
Depending
I see.
on
Okay.
how it's turned. So both those people are right, because that was going to say, no, that's a number 6. That's a number 6. Look, it's not a number 9. That person's going to say, no, it's a number 9. Both those people are actually right, but they're seeing it from a slightly different perspective. And because we only see
Yeah, because I get all these messages, like I said. Well, no, I'm just saying I get all this stuff and I just don't know if it's correct, if I should go with, because you told me, and I think it's true, that like the basilicas and priories and stuff are in the alignments, but there are so many basilicas and stuff that I'm actually going to monadnocks now and spires and obelisks, because I think when you go more ancient, I think linear patterns are going to be more prevalent there than say some of the Catholic churches, because I almost think the Catholics are leading me down a wrong path at the moment, if you understand that. I just, you know, because I know that there's alignments there around the world, but what I find interesting is like Baalbek and stuff, it'll align perfectly to stuff in the United States, but I can find very few alignments in Europe. And I can't figure that out. And Michelle said that the land sunk maybe in Europe, and that's why I'm not getting perfect alignments over there. And she recommended maybe I go to spires and stuff like that, which is a good idea, I thought.
It depends on what the original intention was by these builders when they're actually building these properties. Because sometimes alignments can only just be, you know, in one state or in one city, and it won't go any further than that. And with these ones, these are alignments which are not necessarily natural, but man-made alignments, usually to redirect the flow of the energy to a different direction. So they will build other structures for the energy to flow in a different direction, depending on what the intention was or where they want that energy to flow. So they're creating the effect of a ley line, if you like, so it goes diverts into a different direction.
So why do you think all these things, like in Lebanon or even Mount Kailash or whatever you call it in China, why do I get all these perfect alignments in the United States with Kirkbride buildings, but I can only find like maybe 1 or 2 alignments overseas? I mean, these alignments are perfect 5,000 miles away, but they're imperfect 300 miles away. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's because it depends on what the original intention was, because these alignments were aligned for a
Oh, wait,
specific
you're right.
reason.
Okay, I
It
see
just
where you're
depends
going.
on that reason what it was. So, it's quite difficult to answer why that would be, because there will be some alignments which are perfectly running across, depending on the energy level of that alignment, of that ley line, because you get different strengths of energy lines. Because one of the geobiologists, Rory Duff, he identifies ley lines as being 5 different levels. You get a level 5 energy line, which is one of the strongest ones you can identify, and there's literally like a handful of those around the whole world. And then you get a level 4 ley line,
Okay.
which is not quite as powerful. Sorry, a level 4 ley line, which is not quite as powerful. That literally there'll be like hundreds of thousands of them around the world. Yeah, because what I'll do is I'll share the screen so we can actually see if.
Okay, gotcha.
Because that'd be quite interesting. Where your house is now, just bring out the information that you sent me.
That's where I live. Yeah.
Oh, that's where you live on here. So just this one on the left, is that a railing of the, or is that a power line?
That's a power line going right outside my window.
Is that the one here, basically, or?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Oh, wait, no, that's the one in back, and this is the one in front. So there's 2 different ones. One's in back pointing, actually, the one on my left,
okay.
that's also pointing to where that pile of rocks is up there that my neighbor said has caves all through it and stuff like that.
Okay.
So that's one direction, and then the one on the right is just the other direction. So I'm basically surrounded by high power wires.
So basically, this power line here. So you're looking at from your apartment, are you looking?
Yes.
From your apartment on it. So where you're sitting now, the sofa, is it in line with this power line by any chance?
It's pretty close, but I should tell you something. I don't know if you can see that outside the window. Probably not.
No.
But there's a telephone pole power line 10 feet from me, 15 feet from me, if you can see that. Okay.
So basically,
and then the one on your right. Okay, go on.
With this one, if it's in parallel where you actually where your sofa is, and because you've got the cross point of wires, it creates a stress point of the electricity. You've got the energy running in this direction, and then you've got the energy power running in this direction. So where these two meet, it creates a cross, an X, if you like, of the energies. So you got one energy line, electricity line, power lines going horizontally, and one going vertically. And where they both cross is a stress point. So that's probably in line somewhere where your sofa is. And because you mentioned you need to go, to the office quite often, because if you're sitting on that sofa quite often for a few hours a day, you're being subjected to that stress point of these two energies, of these two power lines crossing. So you've probably got about, I don't know in the US how many volts there are, but usually each layer of power lines is about 100,000 volts. So if you got, say, 200,000 volts per power line, it's a crossover of 400,000 volts at this particular point. And it looks like there's a transformer there as well. If you can have a look at that one on it.
Oh yeah, they're all over the place where I live.
And so you're
one that
within,
blew down the street. Yeah.
Because you're at that point where they cross within it, that's probably affecting where you're sitting.
Yeah, there was all kinds of crap on this pole out here too. So
and you
right.
mentioned that's where your cat it sits quite often on the sofa next to you.
Yes, she's always by my side,
and they're attracted to because of that negative energy, so they try to absorb it. So what I would suggest is if you can reposition that sofa into a different part of the room. So, I mean, have you got any space in your room that you could rearrange it to? where it's not in direct alignment to that one, possibly to the wall to the left or the right of where you are.
Yeah, I could move it like 6 feet. That's what you're saying, right? Like move
Yeah,
it
so
like
what I
six
would
feet. Is that
suggest
okay?
is try moving it 6 feet, so it moves it slightly out of the alignment, and see if that makes any difference at all.
Okay, the only reason I'm bringing this up, I mentioned that I've always, for some reason, like sleeping by windows, and I told you about that attack about a
Yeah,
week or two ago,
yeah.
or a
Can you
month
just
ago, about that crack in my
Yeah,
leg.
can you just go over that attack again? Because I had a very similar one when I was 5 or 6 years old. So if you just explain what that
Well,
was.
I was sleeping here on the couch. Well, I always do. I don't like a bed anymore for some reason. I guess that happens when you get old. But the thing is I woke up and I felt intense pain in my left ankle. I remember trying to wake up, and in my mind, I saw this skinny guy that was either light green or gray or something like that. He was naked. But the thing is, in my mind's eye, I could see him holding my ankle, and I couldn't even move my leg. And I remember there was just intense pain going clear up to my knee. And as much as I tried to wake up, I couldn't, and I just fell back asleep for some reason, even though I was in incredible pain. And when I woke up about 3 hours later, my knee was swollen, my ankle was swollen, and I was just in tons of pain the whole day, and I could barely walk. And I'm just wondering if that really was an alien attack, or if it's whatever, or just an energy. I don't know what it was, to be honest with you, Adam. I don't have a
Yeah.
clue.
I mean, some people can determine it's either just a dream that you have, but I can confirm that when I was 5 or 6 years old myself, we lived in a town called Milton Keynes. And when we lived there, I remember being 5 or 6 years old, one night, just suddenly waking up. And as soon as I woke up, I could see, because my bed was in front of the window. So basically, it was the bed, and there was a small gap, and then there was the window directly in front. I remember waking up and seeing, must have been just before sunrise or something, probably about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning or something. I could see this figure of this probably about 4 or 5 foot, what I would call an alien.
Yes.
A great, like I said, I couldn't see the actual eyes, but I could see like the shape of the eyes, because it was quite dark. I could see it was like a grey skin. He didn't appear to have any clothes on. He stood at the end of the bed, and then I went, oh, I started screaming on top of my head and saying, look, mum, there's an alien, there's a person from outer space in my bedroom. Really started screaming, so loudly, like I never screamed before. And that made that alien, as soon as my mother came in, disappear. What I thought was an alien. And because where we lived in the house, there was a well in the backyard. And that used to always, it was actually, you could see there was a well there. And it was even in a documentation when our parents bought the house that there was a well, because there was this concrete slab with like a hole drilled into it, covering this well. And and when there were times of heavy rain, that used to always flood because of that well on it. And I remember at the age of 6 in the house, me and my brother, I was 6 years old, and my brother was 9. We were playing on the mound, which was a kidney bowl shaped mound in the park at the back of the house, outside the back of the house. And it must have been about, again, sort of dusk, probably about 5 o'clock in the evening. We're out playing on this, with my brother, on this mound, and we saw this light coming down. It was like a comet or a shooting star, where we can see literally about, must have been about, 50, 60 foot away from us, coming down from the sky. It was really bright, and we could hear it, it had like a light with a tail on it, a bit like a comet. We could hear that tail comet from that light coming down, and it completely disappeared about 4 foot from the ground. And we both saw it, and we said to each other, did you just see that? What was on there that came down? And we just thought it was a firecracker or a firework. So we went down where we saw it, and there was absolutely nothing on the ground. if there was a firework or a firecracker, there'll be some kind, some debris there. There was absolutely nothing there whatsoever on there. And then literally that night, I had that experience with that, whether it was a real life alien or just a dream. But now I'm tending to believe it was possibly that experience that we had, because there was a lot of paranormal activity in the area that we were living in, because there was a park at the back of the house with this kidney-shaped bowl mound that we were standing on, and a coppice of woods directly under there, and it was all a layer of clay in this particular land. So that would have been a hot spot for those kind of activities, with the plasma being emitted from it.
Well, come to think of it, there was a lot of clay type soil where I grew up. In West Virginia, it's full of soil like that, like really finely compacted soil that's very hard. It's not water, water can't pass through it or anything like that. That's what I think the front of the dam was made of, is mostly clay and, shell and stuff like that, where I grew up. I don't know if you see the same thing, but like I said, I think I grew up in the middle of a dam or something like that. Or,
yeah, because I had that. I had an image. Where was it? I sent to you. Let's have a look.
Yeah, about the face. I remember that.
The face here, because I'm not sure if you can actually see on there. To me, as soon as I looked at that,
an old tree.
That's a picture of a face. And you mentioned that used to be a dam.
Like I said, I know that tree right there is. Well, the thing is I think they moved. If you go back and you see that entire oval, you can sort of see like this part right here. It seems like that's where the you can see that bare spot where they made a field. It's almost like they removed dirt from there and made the front of the dam, and then on the other side they moved dirt from the other side and made the other side of the dam. If you can see what I'm saying there. It's almost like they specifically made the front of the dam because that V right there is not natural erosion in the sense that.
So this V here you're referring to? This V here, is that the one you're referring to? Is that the V you're referring to?
Can you?
Or is it a different?
You can't see my. Those right? Yeah, right. Move to your left. You see where that blue spot is? Yeah, you can see. To the right there, where it seems like soil was moved and made the front of the dam, and then you can see behind the arrow there, that little blue spot. To the north of that blue spot, it seems like dirt was removed from there and made the front of the dam. You see what I'm saying? Because that entire thing, that V right there, looks like where the causeway was, and it just finally eroded down to V, because that V right there is way too young to be a geologic structure made by a stream. You see what I'm saying? It's just made way too young to have a V shape right there. V shapes like that don't exist anywhere else.
No.
They're streams. So that's why that's the front of a dam.
So that's a dam on it. So is that still an active dam, or is that just the remains of it? Has that been knocked down, or is it still?
That dam right there that I'm thinking, that's an ancient dam, there was never water there. You look at old topo maps and stuff like that. I almost think this is something that's a couple thousand years old. And then you're just finally seeing the V-shaped valley there.
Yeah. Because that to me looks a bit symbolic. Having that picture of that face is very symbolic. Because I'm not sure if you've seen the picture of that face on Mars that came around, I don't know, 20 years ago or something like that, maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah, I know.
Face on Mars. It's used as symbology for something, as a marker. And it's quite interesting because, let's just go back. Yeah, if we go getting a bit closer on
I
here.
never even thought about that, because that's the only field in that entire valley. You're right. I never even thought about that. That's the only man-made field in that entire valley on the hillside.
And why is there just one tree planted to position of the eye? You think that was there planted randomly, or some squirrel, burying an acorn or something, like burying it on there? Trees are usually marked
I know that
as a marker for something.
I know the farmers in the past, when they used to clear forests, they used to just leave like one or two trees behind, and I thought that was it. But the thing is that tree actually, if you look at a topographic map, that tree
Yeah.
actually sits on a little rise.
Right. Okay.
Okay, and it looks overlooks about 50 to 100 feet away was a small stream. It was one of the
Yeah.
very few streams in that entire valley that wasn't a main stream. That there's not too much water in that entire valley. And like I said, this tree just overlooked that small stream. And my dad built a small pond there, but like I said, that just went to waste. But that tree, you're making me wonder about it, because I just thought it was left from the forest that was there, but maybe I'm
If
wrong
if
because
it's, I mean, it could well
okay,
have
go on.
been. We can't give the exact answer. We can only give our interpretation of it. But then when you look at the shape of the actual where the field is, why does it kind of resemble that of a face? Because you've got like the forehead, you've got the eye here. So if that's just a random tree, why have you got the shape of the forehead and it's sort of like carved out from the air, the shape of a nose and then the chin?
I
It
don't
looks to me
know.
like it was
That's a
one of
very
those it reminds me of the petroglyphs.
well, actually, when you look at that whole field, you can almost make it like a face,
Yes.
and they're wearing a hat or something, or feathers or what,
Hmm.
I, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, like
That
an
entire
Indian
thing is insane.
wine dot or whatever they call them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Wow.
basically
I never.
that's symbolic for it, and that was put there for a reason. Like it wasn't put there as a doesn't look like it's a working dam or ever been used as a working dam. So then you got to ask the question, well, why would you build it there if it doesn't serve as a dam? But then from my own research, a lot of these dams that are being built were used as covers for something else. So when they were building the dam at the time of construction, could they have been building something underneath the ground at the same time? Because a lot of the dams, even the modern day dams, have the generators for hydroelectricity.
Well, that's the thing, because I was thinking about this. This is strictly a theory, but if this valley is artificial, my thought was they used the dam for fresh water and also for processing minerals,
Possibly.
theoretically, because I just think that that entire area was mined one time. But also, another theory I have is, which is kind of weird, but where I live on top of a mountain, and it's mud
Yeah.
flooded up here by about a foot. And I'm thinking that a lot of these areas were like, you see the strip mine marks and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm almost wondering if they put a lot of sediment in the air to help put out fires that were worldwide.
It looks to me
If
like
that,
there is damage on here because it looks. Well, it depends on how you look at it. Some of these look like.
yeah, one side is damaged and the other side is not. This looks
Yeah.
like open pit mining, is what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
So there's definitely been some kind of earthworks happening in this area, and it looks like it's from a devastation. Like this whole area here, where I'm pointing now, this whole area at this point, this looks like it's an area that has been mined quite, you know, quite quite significantly.
And you will see that 20 miles east of there, it just keeps on going.
Yeah. So
If you
that's
look at
what.
Google Earth, that whole area, it just keeps on going. Yeah.
So that would tell me, why would they, something happened on there. What is that to cover? Because just looking at it from this angle and this height elevation here, it looks like like the waves in sand. You get like in the desert, you get the sand which forms waves from the wind and stuff. It looks very similar to that.
Well, all I know is when I grew up, there were no dams around there at all. Now they're all over Marion County. They cover everything, and that's just the way it is, And like I said, this dam that you see down in the bottom of the picture,
Yeah.
right there, that entire dam, it's for two very small streams. One of them you can jump across, and the other one is twice as big. So why? It makes no sense. They said
No.
it was for a water reservoir. It
Yeah.
makes no sense.
Yeah. It hasn't got enough reservation on it. So I'd assume, if there is an underground bunker or some kind of facility that they use, it could well be to provide power for that underground, if there is anything underground that's on here, because something has been happened to cover something up. And in order to,
Well, the thing is you see the first set of pine trees in the valley, the first set way up, in the center of the picture, not down at the dam, but in the center, right up there. That's approximately where the mine stopped. The coal mine stopped right in that area, right in front of the third dam or third pond there, right in that area. So right below that is where the border of the mine was, right there.
And that's where there was that explosion. Okay. So the explosion was a mile up the road. So that would have been something to do with a coal mine, whether it be shafts or tunneling or whatever it is.
I'm wondering if the miners found something that they shouldn't have, but they didn't understand it. You see what I'm saying? And they told their superiors, and then boom, the ball started rolling.
Yeah. Because if we just go to this image here, because obviously you're mentioning that your father was obviously caught up in this disaster, which is which you said was about a mile away from where your house was, where on that image that we just saw.
Oh yeah, that's it. It's basically right over the hill for me. Yeah,
and
it
just
was right over the hill.
Just by decoding it, just by the simple decoding of it, as we can see, the coding that they use, that surprisingly that there was 99 miners inside, and 90, the number 9 is very symbolic to them. Why would there be 99 miners? Why couldn't it be 197 or 102, 105? So you've got the symbology of the 9 with 12 miles away, the symbology of the 3. And then if we look here, we've got that 21 miners were able to escape. So if we use them as single numbers, we've got the 2 and 1, which is a 3.
3 again. Yeah.
So that looks too much of a coincidence on what has actually happened there. And it also says that the cause of the explosion was never determined. So that would be saying, well, why wasn't it determined and stuff like that? Because there are various theories that you say, like the fan that wasn't working. So could that fan?
Well, the thing is,
ventilation fan.
I should tell you that lady, after she wrote the book, suffered a lot of defamation after that. People abused her. Just so you know that. Okay.
Well,
she was called a liar.
And people usually give a lot of negative about the people who try to release the truth. So we're saying that that lady was probably onto the truth, that something had actually happened and it wasn't deliberate. So to me, even if you look at the theory of the ventilation fan sabotage, did somebody sabotage that fan?
Yeah, because there's not even a name
that fan
on record.
Would lead to an explosion due to the methane and flammable gases which are present within the mines.
Well, that's a thing, because I should tell you, there wasn't even paperwork found on who repaired that switch.
There you go.
You see what I'm saying?
This is the kind of stories that we get everywhere. There was another lady I was checking in. What was it? On the east coast of America, and she had again, no cause of death was actually the cause of death and the cause of the explosion on a similar mine was not determined either. And it's all about money at the time, because a lot of these mines were going through a time where there was either going through a period of where they were making a lot of money or they're making a lot of losses.
Right.
And I was reading on the American history on the mines where this lady was on towards the east. She mentioned that, so the research I was looking through, it did actually mention that they used to have insurance policies for the workers. So if a worker died because of a mining accident or thingy, the employer, so the people who own the mine works, would get compensated for that employee, for that worker, but that money would only be for the mining corporation. It would not be given to the family members of the person who's actually perished.
Well, let me tell you something here. We didn't get a whole lot of money. I don't know the exact amount, but if my mom didn't go to school to get an education, she would have been broke her whole life.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The coal mines didn't give her squat. I remember getting like $30 a month until I was through college. Okay, so it's like, what we do.
Yeah, and it's quite interesting as well, because obviously it happened to be coal mine number 9. If that's anything to go by, is that what that indicates? Or
Yeah,
number 9?
console number 9 was the name of the mine. Yes.
So it was console number 9 with 99 miners who were inside. Was that deliberately planned for 99 for that explosion to happen when there were 99 miners in there? Because there'll be different shifts, I
Wow.
presume. If they, different shifts on it, why would there be 99 miners in mine number 9? There's too much symbology to say that would be random to me. And from looking at the other historical American mines which exploded in the 1800s and the early 1900s, we get a similar kind of pattern forming from the information that we're provided. So it all seems to be too coincidental to be random, where it wasn't done deliberately for whatever intended purpose the controllers had, or the mine operators, or whoever, the local government, the local state, whatever their intention was.
All I know is there's been quite a few lawsuits against the mining company, that have been started since 1968, and they've all been dismissed.
The company here has done all in its power to make this a safe mine. Unfortunately, we don't understand why these things happen, but they do happen. Governor Hewlett Smith also commented that, "We must recognize that this is a hazardous business, and what has occurred here is one of the hazards of being a miner." The disaster did spur some positive change. Congressman Ken Heckler fought for the miners, paying for hundreds of workers and widows to protest in Washington. In early 1969, 40,000 West Virginia coal miners staged a wildcat strike, demanding better, safer working conditions. That same year, the Coal Mine Safety and Health Act was passed by Congress, which increased the number of mine inspections and put more responsibility on companies to adhere to safety rules, imposing fines and criminal penalties for violations. While this progress was of some comfort to those who had lost loved ones in the Farmington mine disaster, some fundamental questions still remained unanswered. They wanted to know what had caused the explosion and who might be responsible. In 2014, families asked the US Court of Appeals to reinstate a wrongful death lawsuit after some new evidence was uncovered. A retired federal mine inspector, Larry Lane, wrote in a sworn affidavit that he had been told by a mine electrician that the alarm on a ventilation fan had been turned off by the mine's head electrician on the day of the disaster. The alarm would have made workers aware that the ventilation fan was not functioning, and that therefore dangerous gases could be building up. If this was true, the company was directly responsible for the disaster. Some families pressed for further action, but in 2017 a federal judge threw out the case, saying the suit, brought 46 years after the explosion, is late by more than 44.
Yeah, because they don't. Yeah, they dismiss it because the controllers don't want to answer any questions to it, because they're afraid what kind of worms it's going to bring up to them, which won't be in their favor.
Well, can I ask you a question here? A very serious question, because the last few years I've been very, how can I say it? I really wanted to get answers, but I think a lot of these answers that you're giving would be good for people, give them closure. But then again, I almost wonder, if it wouldn't give them closure, that it's like it just opens up a can of worms again, because you're dealing with paranormal, or you're dealing with something that people don't even think about anymore. I mean, if 80% of the population could be fooled by COVID vaccine, they're not even going to look at this seriously. Most people, is this worth talking to somebody about?
I just feel it's worth raising the awareness to let people know. So if anybody can connect to it and say, yeah, that makes sense, at least they're getting that sense of truth. Whereas the people who want to dismiss it and saying, oh, you've got no facts to prove it, you're just saying that just by looking at the information, you can't say it was done deliberate. No, we can't say it was done deliberately. We're saying, is it a possibility that it could have been done deliberately based on the information, knowing the modus operandi of how the controllers operate and seeing the pattern in other such disasters? Just giving so that people can look for themselves. If they want to dismiss it, similar to the COVID pandemic, then that's fine. And, people can actually do it. But at least the people who want to find out the truth, at least if some information comes out and they can resonate with it because something clicks in, at least they get some kind of closure.
What makes it difficult, this is something you don't know about. There was the first woman doctor who went to West Virginia University to study to be a physician in West Virginia. Her childhood home was a couple hundred yards from where I grew up.
Right.
And I've mentioned this to many, many people on Facebook. I've messaged people. I've messaged heads of. I actually messaged somebody who was a head of a historical society. Not one person has contacted me back, not even a newspaper reporter.
No.
So something's going on in that town that just totally boggles my mind. And it's like, if I approach somebody with this, I'm going to be shut down again. I think. I know I'm not being sure, but it's the impression I get. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I mean,
because I've been trying to get this physician a memorial. I just want to tell you, I've been trying to get her a memorial for like a year, and I can't.
No, because they won't want that, because they're afraid. That tells me, from my opinion, that they've got something to hide. The information, that I'm saying now is based on my own personal opinion. So I'm not saying that's, exactly what has happened. I'm just opening that area to, this from my experience, looking at other areas, this is what I come up with, because no one's getting any answers to exactly what happened. Could this be a possibility? What we're being told, basically, so that they can start making their own opinion and even doing their own investigation, research into actually trying to find the answer for themselves. So it just gives them the other options that aren't available out there. So it's.
Well, in your professional opinion, what other options are there? It can't. I'm just saying there's too many coincidences going
Absolutely,
on.
I agree.
From 100%. The way I'm looking.
If there's one or two coincidences, it can be dismissed as just being a coincidence. But from my last 7 years worth of research, I don't believe anything as being a coincidence. So if I see the pattern usually occurring more than 3, 4, 5 times, it stops being a coincidence because it forms a pattern. And then it's once you're seeing that pattern, is to trying to connect the dots together to see what's forming that pattern.
Well, just to tell you about the female doctor, one more thing.
Yeah.
It's like one lady, well, the doctor's name was Dr. Phoebe Amore, and there's a Phoebe Amore library near in Mannington named after her. So I contacted a lady who just retired from there and told her exactly what I knew. Like, I know where her house was. You can see it on Google Earth, remains of whatever. And she closed her Facebook account down right after I contacted her. That's the type of reaction I've been getting. So it seems like there's a lot of stuff being hidden, not just a coal mine, but just something's happening there. I'll try to find somebody even associated with a coal mine, because I don't know anybody. I haven't been back to this area since the 1980s, but I will try to run this by a few people and see who I can find and run it by. It makes sense to me.
Now we're coming into an age where the truth is far more, the truth is much stronger, because there's so much truth that's being uncovered could be literally anything, not regarding coal mines, anything that we're being told from the media now. People are starting to see the truth.
Yeah.
So if there's a news article that comes up, a random news article of, something that's just happened, people, instead of believing what they're being told by the TV, by the news, they're actually making their own decision and seeing the truth behind of what is actually being said. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, that's one of my jobs, is to get the truth out there for people. And like I said, if somebody listens to this video and they can comment on it because they've got some information, then it makes it a lot more valid with that other person, that can potentially come through for information. Is this where you had the experience where you said that you disappeared on that field when you?
That arrow in the middle.
Yeah. So if you
explain,
explain about this, where what we're seeing here and what these symbolize, and then what you experienced, and then I can give you my example of something very similar, so we can connect the dots.
I'll just go from the top down. Then I'll go to the spot in the farthest northeast, right there.
Yeah.
Right. There was a house or something there. There were ruins that I saw all through my childhood, but I could never walk towards them to see what they were. I could never walk more than 50 to 100 feet of that place to those ruins. I think it was the old house, but I would just look at it and I would just be scared. I could always walk around that whole area. I walked up and down all over those hills, but that one spot there, I could never walk towards. So I don't even know what the building was.
Was it accessible? So did you have, if you wanted to, you could have had access to it? Or was it?
I could have walked all over it. Yeah.
You could have walked all over it. So you were sensing the negativity in that area. Your
probably because, like I said,
was connected.
I could never go within 50 feet of it. I was always scared of that one particular house or whatever it was, building. Yeah. Yes.
And then these, you mentioned that
now
these are these pine trees, are they? These on the side here?
Yeah, the top row pine trees right there. That's right by the top pond. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, as you go down to the second one, the second pond you can still see right there.
Yeah.
And then right below that is where I had my paranormal experience. We were just basically taking the sheep from a field up by the second and third pond down to where our property was. And right there where that arrow is, that's where I blipped out. Because we were right in that area right there. That's when we were herding the sheep. That's all of a sudden, I just remembered, like I said, I didn't recognize anything. That's one of the most paranormal spots I could think of on that entire property. That's also where I hid out a lot. Okay. That we talked about earlier.
And when you had that experience, so where did you end? When you had that paranormal experience, where did you end up in this area then? So if you had that experience there, you said you were in a different field.
All I know is I can remember my dad had to find me in the woods somewhere up on the hillside. That's all I can remember.
So which side,
he had to run
would that have been? Do you remember which side that would have been? Or
that would actually be near that arrow again as you go up the hill.
All right. So
right by that pine. Yes, somewhere up there. I don't know where. He had to find me because I was screaming my butt off. That's all I could tell you.
Okay.
Okay, because I just basically took off running.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. Nothing was recognizable when I just took off running.
Yeah, and it's quite interesting. So I had a similar experience of my 4-year-old youngest son in 2016.
Well, I was 5, so that makes sense. Let me ask you: is that a transition period for kids when they're going from sort of like the paranormal side to the human? Okay,
it's about because basically a lot of kids are born in the higher frequency vibration, because their brain waves are in a theta brainwave. As soon as they reach the age of 7, they stop. They tend to be not quite in that higher level of consciousness, because they, if they remember anything from previous lives, that's why you get some, 5, 6-year-olds, 4-year-olds remembering some past lives and have certain paranormal experiences. And then once they reach the age of 7, they stop having these experiences because the brainwave is at a slightly different frequency. Whether it's caused by natural development, or through the conditioning from society and through, through society in general.
So my dad was killed right in that cusp, 'cause I was 8 years old at that time. Because, like I said, I do remember paranormal stuff with my father communicating, not communicating, but coming to in my dreams twice after he died that same year. And then after that, I hadn't seen him till a year ago, 2 years ago.
So that's telling me that your father is guiding you, with on there. So he's trying to connect, trying to guide you in order to heal the past.
Okay.
So what would
now,
you like to?
Okay, now
Yeah. And
that dog right there.
Yeah.
There used to be an old barn there, one of those real tall barns. It was like 2 stories. The bottom story was for like herding sheep or keeping sheep down there and cows for milking and stuff. And the thing is, I could go into the top floor of that barn where they used to store hay, and I could walk around it with no problem. But if I ever went into the bottom floor, I could just feel the air just, it got real thick down there, and I could only spend like maybe 30 seconds to a minute before I'd be running out of there.
Yeah.
It was that intense towards the end.
And it's quite interesting because if I give you an example of a similar experience I had before I share the screen, but just to worth noting, this whole area is in a valley. Is that correct? You can see it. There's an elevation either side.
Yeah.
So this is in a valley, and there's an image of a face here. So when you look at my example, if you just obviously remember the valley and that figure of the face. So if I share.
Whoa.
I show from beginning. Yeah. So basically, we're on vacation in 2016 in Wales, which is just a small country, part of the UK between England and Ireland.
Yes.
And we're on a vacation to this castle, which was built as a medieval fortress dating back to the 1200s. And so basically, the incident happened was we came up on these stairs at this tier of this, what looks like a ziggurat pyramid. Looks like a triangle.
Yes.
Step pyramid. We're walking through here. As soon as the youngest son stepped onto this platform, he said to me that he can see a giant fuchsia. And a fuchsia is just like a flower on a particular plant. And I said, oh, where can you see this fuchsia? And he said, oh, in the sky. We couldn't see anything, so we thought he was referring to a fuchsia because there were some fuchsia plants at this tier here. So we thought we didn't think much of it then. And just before we go to the next slide, where this gentleman is here, this grey-haired gentleman, that's where we were standing. So we got up to there. As soon as we got onto this platform, he said that he can see this giant fuchsia. So we didn't know what that was until we got back to the hotel, the cottage that we rented for the vacation. We looked at the photo, and in this photo, we saw this in the sky, this UAP.
Whoa. Yeah.
And it looks like a fuchsia on there. And just to the left, to the right, it looks like there's a shape of a face on the cloud. You can see the eyes, the nose, the chin, and what looks like the hairline overlooking the cup. This whatever this monument is.
Well, that thing even looks weird to me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
it's very
different.
symbolic. And then the youngest son, he was looking at this pattern in this field. And if we look at here, when we were there was this kind of like, this is a man-made pattern that was on there. It's an unusual pattern. He was looking at it. It's like he was seeing this fuchsia from this area going into the sky. So if we just zoom in to the fuchsia, we can quite clearly see that it's a fuchsia plant. And there's an alignment here, where there's a ley line running through. Is at the top of this escarpment here, this hill, there's a telecommunication tower of some sort. Then there's a church tower. And then it's this right-angled cup here. So the ley line runs directly through this point at the 90-degree angle. because we're at 90 degrees. So we didn't think much of it at the time. But then as soon as we went down from this, well, here's just an example of what a fuchsia looks like. So as you can see, it's got the
Yeah, you can see the stamens and
the stamens. So
Okay.
that was definitely a fuchsia. That's what he actually saw in his eyes. We couldn't see it, but luckily the camera picked up, the phone picked up that image when we got back. And as soon as we walked down from this, down to the ground level, so we were basically standing here. We walked down to this ground level here, where this dot is. All 5 of us. So there was me, my wife, my eldest son, youngest son, and my wife's sister. We're all standing here. The youngest one was standing with us. He just completely vanished. For 5 minutes, we did not know where he was. We started shouting his name, calling his name. I went round to this field, couldn't find him. We didn't know where he was. The eldest son found him sitting. There's a pond here, on a bench, under the oak tree by the pond, completely like in a state of trance, not knowing how he got there. It's completely calm and everything, but he was saying he was just overlooking the field, overlooking the pond under the tree. How he got there, we do not know. That's completely
How long did it take
unexplained.
you and your
It
wife
was
to
witnessed by all by 4 of us that he completely vanished. Because we would have, if we can see the distance here, there was a clear path running along, so we would have seen him. The only way he could have got to this area was to go along this route. So we would have seen him walking along this route if he would have walked by himself to this area. And then looking at the field where we were, where we saw that pattern from that point there, Google Earth image now doesn't show that pattern, but it seems to show the spiral shape, like a circular, like a vortex shape, because there is a vortex running through here.
Well, there seems like multiple vortexes, right?
So there's multiple vortexes running through here. And then just to the top left here, you can see remnants of it. That there used to be quarries up here.
Okay.
So this tells me, and this is just the pond that he was actually overlooking. And as we can see, to the other side, there's another escarpment. So this whole area that we were in was in that valley. And again, by the water. Can you see the significance of it? And this event was completely witnessed. That was completely.
Well, let me ask you: when you're at places like this, do you feel anything? Do you have a physical reaction or not?
I do. I sometimes have a physical reaction, but at that time, because we weren't aware of what really goes on, we just dismissed it. We said, that was a bit weird. But it's only confirmed it. We thought, well, that's a bit strange. When he got back to the cottage that we hired out where we were staying in, when we looked at that photo, I said to my wife, look, that's that fuchsia that he mentioned that he saw in the sky on that photo, when it made us realize, what was going on. And we just dismissed it completely. And another incident happened in 3 months later in Dubai, when I took my eldest son. He vanished from outside the Emirates Palace by where the water fountain was. For 5 minutes, he just completely vanished. And then he turned up right next to me and saying he was taking pictures of the skyline on his phone. And even the tour guide that we were with, because I thought to myself, where's my son gone? I can't see him. And then this tour guide came up to me and said, where's your son gone? And I go, well, I didn't know where he was. I didn't want to, startle him or anything like that. So I just said, oh, he's just taking photos. He'll be back in a minute. And then literally 5 minutes later, he just came up to me. He must have been about 25, 30 feet away from us. Completely open space where the water fountain was. So he had nowhere else to go. He was there and he could actually see us standing there, but we couldn't see him. And that happened exactly.
So he thought he was safe the whole time anyway.
He thought he was safe because he could see us, but neither myself nor the tour guide could actually see him. You could see everybody else. Everybody's out there. There was nobody else. He wasn't anywhere else but in that specific spot. So it just shows how these coincidences happen. Well, these events happen at these places, at these high energy points?